Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode, our live show of Pilates Bridge. And today we're talking about Pilates for Parkinson's. I have an amazing speaker with us today, Cecilia Pulido, and she's really the powerhouse of movement education, and she's the creator of the Pilates for Parkinson's method. Overall, Cecilia has over 25 years of combined experience and knowledge between like Pilates, yoga, although functional movement, I mean, I can't even count ever all your experiences that you have, but like your life work really right now is dedicated to helping patients or clients with Parkinson's, individuals, and also help empower the teachers to work with this population. So thank you so much, Cecilia, for being on this live show with us. Before we get started, for everyone who is live with us today, I just want to like a couple of housekeeping things. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat and we'll get to them as soon as we can. We're going to try to go through as many of them as we can, but we have like a ton of content to discuss, a ton of questions that were already submitted. We're really excited about them. But now let's begin with the actual good part. So Cecilia, can you please share a little bit about yourself, your experience, and why exactly did you become interested in working with like Parkinson's?
Hi, everybody, and thank you so much, Anastasia, for inviting me onto the show. And thanks everybody who's tuning in live. And those of you who can't, I'm hoping you get the recording and you enjoy it equally. I am Cecilia Pulido, and I am the founder of Pilates for the number 4 Parkinson's. I've been doing this 25 years, and I always look back and think to myself, why am I doing this? I absolutely love what I do. And I think more than me choosing the calling chose me and just kept following me around everywhere I went. I would meet people who wanted to work with me who had Parkinson's disease. And finally, once I just really embraced the work, it just started to roll out and just kind of take on a life of its own. And that carried me into a lot more education and training because I saw the need for much more hands-on, knowledgeable movement professionals to work with this community. And what's really exciting to me, and what has been underlined by the amazing response from the Pilates Bridge community, is how much of a need there is. So when I think about Pilates teachers, I feel like we're on this side, and movement professionals, but I'll speak mostly for Pilates. Oops, my hand got raised. Pilates teachers. So Pilates teachers are on one side, and then you've got an entire big community of people with Parkinson's on the other side. And these two communities are having difficulty connecting. There's like a chasm here. And Pilates teachers, I feel, are so knowledgeable. I mean, we have so much training. Many of us have very particular specializations or multiple specializations. We understand anatomy, some physiology. We have a very good command of kinematics and how the body should move. And so we are ideal to help the Parkinson's population community to preserve their movement independence. And that's where Pilates for Parkinson's comes in. So you've got these two groups, and we are kind of the bridge or the knowledge so that Pilates teachers can work very effectively and progressively with people who have Parkinson's disease. So I'm really excited about that.
Thanks, Cecilia. So why is like for somebody who doesn't know much about working with Parkinson's, why is movement practice is such a powerful tool for this population?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So when we think about the physiology of Parkinson's disease and just the nature of the condition itself, it's triggered by, and I'm not going to go into like deep details about the neuroscience of the condition, but just basic, it's really brought on by a lack of the neurotransmitter dopamine. Other neurotransmitters are wavering in their amounts in the brain as well. But the real culprit is the dopamine. And dopamine is responsible for smooth and fluid movement, as well as many other things that happen to us, our emotions, our drive, our motivation, our sleep cycle, the way we feel. So, dopamine's a really important neurotransmitter. And so if that neurotransmitter is lacking, deficient, entirely missing, or the pathways to get the neurotransmitter to the different areas of the brain, so we have normal function, if that is corrupted in any way, then we start to see movement issues and other issues as well, but predominantly movement issues. And the irony is that the only thing that can help either slow the progression or attenuate the disease progression and even change the course of the disease is exercise. So movement's important, but it needs to be movement in the form of exercise. And that's where we come in.
That's interesting. Um, yeah, so how, like, when there are different stages of the Parkinson's disease, right? And like at different stages, there are going to be different limitations or, um, symptoms. So what are the most common movement limitations or symptoms that, Pilates instructors should be aware of when they're working with the patient? And maybe like you can go a little bit through the different stages and explain
Mhm.
how that all kind of goes, what you expect.
Sure. So when you think about the Parkinson's conditions, it's not really about looking for movement limitations. To work with this community, you have to have an understanding, at least a base knowledge understanding of the stages and the motor and non-motor symptoms. Because I don't like to use the word limitations. I always kind of look at possibilities. But if we're talking about what is possible and what is not possible, what we do in Pilates for Parkinson's is we first look at the stage because that already gives us a framework of where we're going to begin with our client and what is possible, what is not possible. And then we look at the primary motor symptoms, which inform the programming as well. And then that also carries with it the stage and the motor symptoms, what the risk factors are for that client. So we structure our programming around that. And then just to touch on some of the stages, the Hoehn-Yahr scale is predominantly what's used to categorize a level of disability. But really, what we do is we have our own stages. So once we know in Pilates for Parkinson's, so once we know and we assess what stage the client is in according to Hoehn-Yahr, then we proceed with matching our stage to that. And then that's how we do the programming. And I'll just say one more thing, which is, so we're looking at 5 basic stages, although now it's been modified slightly to do half stages in between each stage. But you're looking at an early stage, a mid, and a late. So it'd be stages 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the early stage would be 1 to 1.5, almost 2. The mid stage would be something like 2 to 3.5, and the late stage would be 3.54 and on. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's different types of, in early stage, you're still very functional. In mid stage, that's where you start to see more ambulation and gait deterioration. And by late stage, that's more of a sedentary stage where you're usually not walking, definitely can't live alone. So yeah, that gives you kind of a framework.
So obviously, like if somebody's starting new with a patient who has Parkinson's, um, or client, I would say, what are going to be some of the first steps to safely start working with them? And I understand a lot of that will depend greatly on what stage they're in.
Right.
But just overall, I would imagine people, if it's like a person coming into the studio, that's probably going to be either the first stage, the early stage, or maybe the beginning of that, the medium, the tier, not the late stage of it.
Right, right,
So,
right.
like, if we're like talking about those types of clients, what should we focus on?
So a few things. If your clients with Parkinson's disease are actually coming to the studio, it's probably more indicative that they're in early stage. If they're coming to the studio in mid-stage, they will always have a caregiver support. They'll have their walker with them. In that case, they really shouldn't be in group classes. They should be more in private sessions with you. By mid-stage, most of the clients that I work with are not coming to the studio. I am going to their homes, and I do a lot of in-home work that can be replicated in the studio. But the key here is that the value of the work is only and the benefits of the work that you do with your client will only be as good as their ability to adhere to a daily consistent practice. And that's where Pilates for Parkinson's comes in. I am promoting that Pilates for Parkinson's is a baseline. So if they're coming to the studio, they're in early stage, maybe they can do some apparatus work. Maybe, this is the time for the teacher to start looking and seeing where the client's stage is moving towards. For example, are they starting to flex forward? Are they starting to show a little bit of lateral flexion decline into spinal asymmetry? Are they starting to struggle with their ambulation and gait? These are all things that you can see in advance if your eye is trained and you know what you're looking for. And then if that's the case, you can start to fortify your programming. And if they're coming to you in mid-stage, it should definitely be a private room situation. And above all, I always say to all my teachers and the people that I work with, less is more. So we want to make sure that they're always in a safe environment. There's always, not a lot of clutter. They're hypersensitive. Their neurosensory system is disrupted. So things like lights, temperatures, noises, all of these things can have varying degrees of disruptive effect on the person who has Parkinson's disease. So those are just a few things to consider depending on the stage your client's in. And you would never see, I hate to say never, but I have never seen a late stage client in studio ever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, understandable. So like for if we're talking about the early stage of a client who's still coming to the studio, what are like some of the goals that you would have for that client in terms of their movement? I mean, I know each one's going to be different. That's what we're trying to do as Pilates professionals. But like overall, what would you work on as just a general rule with them?
So in the Pilates for Parkinson's method, we have a vertical approach and we focus on three predominant areas. We're looking at upright posture, spinal mobility, and preserving ambulation and gait. So before we tackle any movements or throw any exercises or anything to the client, we're going to look at those three categories, and everything we do is going to fortify or buttress one or more of all of those categories. And, I say a vertical approach because as Pilates teachers, we know that if you have good upright posture, your spinal mobility is better. And of course, your ambulation and gait is better. And as your posture starts to deteriorate or you have any kind of spinal asymmetries, it starts to go down and it will affect your spinal mobility. And then that, of course, has consequences in how you ambulate and your gait. Yeah. So we
Okay.
kind of look at it like that first, and then we figure it out according to motor symptoms and stage.
So what are like, can you walk us through some, like maybe one or two of the, like some of the fundamental exercises that you think like every teacher who works with a Parkinson's client should have in their toolbox?
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain it first, and then I'd love to show you all just one from the 11 Absolute. So after working with this population for 25 years, and I've seen a lot, I think I've seen a tremendous amount. I've experienced a lot with my clients from stage one all the way to the end of their Parkinson's and lives. And it's a very tough journey, not just for the person who has Parkinson's disease, but for all the people that love them. So the work is very special. In terms of some of the movements, after 25 years and everything I've studied, I come from the fitness industry originally and from martial arts. So I have learned so much. And I used to always wonder, why, where is this all going? Why am I doing kettlebells? Why am I doing TRX? Why am I doing, martial arts and yoga and just so many different things. And then as I got later, I started to see where certain things were so instrumental and helpful for people who have Parkinson's disease to help them preserve their movement independence. So all of the programming that I deliver is informed by not just the 25 years of working with people, but my entire fitness background and my Pilates background. And I will also say that Pilates for Parkinson's, it is not only Pilates exercises. It is based on the Pilates method, and everything in the method of Pilates for Parkinson's is governed by the Pilates principles. So the principles, as we all know, can be applied to any movement. And that's something very, very important to keep in mind when you're working with a person with PD. You're not going to achieve perfect symmetry, but you are looking for best possible symmetry, best possible that the person can achieve. And, overall, our goal is to make them feel better. So that being said, I came up with a baseline exercise protocol called the 11 absolute must do exercise mini sets if you have Parkinson's disease. And I say mini sets because it's not just one exercise, it's like a little baby category. They go together. They're like little sets that go together. I'm going to show you one that when I teach the 11 absolute, I always talk to the teacher trainers and I say to them that if you learn only one mini set, or you have to pick one from the 11 that you do with your clients, then it should be mini set number 3. And I'm going to show you that. That's called the Pakwa Sky series. And I also will add that if you, as a Pilates teacher or a movement professional, want to work with the Parkinson's community, or you just want to be prepared in case someone comes into your studio and really wants your help, and you don't want to feel like, oh, I don't know what to do, I don't know anything about this. If you have just this base knowledge, which is actually even taught in a 5-hour workshop all about PD, and then the 11 absolute. If you just have those 11 absolute, you're going to be able to work with anybody who has Parkinson's disease to some degree, with apparatus or without. You don't even need the apparatus. That's kind of like a addition or a benefit for you and for the client, but you could really do a lot just on your own with a mat. So, sorry, that was like a long-winded answer. But I really want to make sure that you are getting like how valuable and how much knowledge you have as Pilates teachers, and that there's so much you can do. There's so much you can do. You're just missing that little bridge part to understand what to do and when and how. All right. So do you want me to show you one?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right, so preface to this, remember that I said that we work in a vertical chain, which is upright posture, spinal mobility, and preserving ambulation and gait. So what I love so much about mini set number 3, it's called the Pakwa Sky series, and this is derived from my 22 years of martial arts training. What I love about it is it hits all 3 categories. So you're training upright posture, you're working spinal mobility, and you're helping to preserve ambulation and gait by doing like a gait cycle training thing. So I will show it to you. All right. So I'm going to do 4 of each, and you can follow along with me if you want, or you can just watch, and I'll just kind of explain it a little bit as I'm going along. So I'm going to come back here. I will start facing this way, and then at one point I'll turn so you can see the profile as well. So the client's going to start with their feet parallel, and then they're going to start with the left, and they'll step forward, heel ball toe. Let me move back a little so you can see
Mhm.
my feet. They'll step back, step forward, heel ball toe, hug a tree. 1, 2, extension 3, opening the hip flexor. 4, coming back. Switch to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to do the same one sideways. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's the first. It goes in 4. The next one is 1, 2, 3, 4, right leg, 1. So you're just switching legs each time. I'll do it sideways. 1, 2, your arms are in goalposts. 3, maximal scapular retraction with some extension. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the next one, we call it airplane arms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I did that sideways, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Pull, pull, and release. And then the last one, we call pull the reins. Left leg, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if I did that sideways, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that goes together with some head and neck movements. And the head and neck movements, I'll come up a little bit, stand a little bit more with a wide stance. So this is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So sagittal up and down. Then it's going to go ear to shoulder. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then of course there's the head turn, checking for traffic. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we have an X. So we imagine there's a giant X over the top of our head, and our head will tilt to the forward front, center, back right, center, forward right, center, back left, center. And then you'll do that maybe 2 or 3 times. And then the circle, down and around, down and up, down and around, down and up. So those two pair together in the Pakwa mini set series. And what I want to show you is if you have a client who's in early stage, you definitely want to take them through this, and you can even apply these movements to apparatus. So I won't teach apparatus obviously now, but let's say you have a client who comes in who's in mid stage, and it's very difficult for them to balance or to stand for long amounts of time. So I will show it to you in a chair to just give you an idea. I won't do all of them, but so you have some idea. So here you can do a disassociation of upper body and lower body. So they can be here, and they could use their legs by stepping forward with their foot. Move back. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or they could just do the upper body. 1, 2, 3, 4. Big circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So the important thing about that is, it doesn't really look like too much to do, but for a person with Parkinson's disease, this is very challenging. And it's especially challenging as the condition starts to progress. So you have the balance and the gait cycle training with the stepping pattern forward and back. And so in the early stages when you're teaching it, that's your opportunity to make any kind of adjustments and feed forward cueing so that they can get it as efficient as possible with this movement. But by the time you get to mid stage, you really can't teach or correct so much. You would take it very slow. You would just do maybe 1 or 2 of those and focus on those. And then you could slow the whole thing down so that it's more of a breathing exercise. So it'd be inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And believe it or not, that could take some time to teach a person. And the breathing aspect is so important because with Parkinson's disease, the tendency is that the breathing cycle is corrupted and people start to mouth breathe. So you'll start to see mouth slightly dropped open and breathing that's going in through the mouth and out through the mouth, which has its own set of degenerative conditions linked to that, to mouth breathing. So that gives you kind of like an idea. Of course, when I teach, there's all the anatomy and the physiology that's happening in the movement and explaining what goes to where, what you're looking for. but at least you have an idea of a simple movement. You don't even need anything. If you wanted to add a prop, you could. You can use elastic bands. I use what's called a core spring. Do you want me to show that core
Yeah,
spring?
if you have it close by, yeah, because I know it was one of the questions that was submitted about the props. Yep.
So this is one of the training tools that I use very consistently with my PD clients. And I use it because it's a spring and it's stretchy, but it's weighted and it's got some kind of like density to it. And no, it's not the same as an elastic band because the spring itself is a special weight. It's calibrated to be a particular length. And what happens is when your clients are in a closed chain and they feel the weight of this, they're better able to move and to stretch themselves out, especially if you have your clients, which I do a lot of this in mid-stage, kind of like 2 to 3.5. They're supine on the floor. Their legs are supported on, it could be a Pilates box, it could be an ottoman, it could be the couch. This is in their hands, pushing up to the ceiling. They bring it up over their head as they long-legged bridge up. So this helps them get into a stretch and to open up because Parkinson's is very much so a forward flexion condition.
Hmm.
So as the condition progresses along, it starts to pull the person back into the primal curve. And not just that, but it starts to change your proprioception, your depth perception. And so that triggers musculoskeletal changes throughout the body because your perception of upright is starting to decline. Yeah. So
Right.
this is a fabulous tool to be able to use. If I were using it like this, it would be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Or a very simple thing is sit to stand. Sit to stand is an extremely important exercise, and using a tool like that where they can have some like a little bit of heaviness where they open can really help with upright posture.
And
Yeah.
with that specific spring, where can people purchase that one? Is it
That you can just go online. It is a company called CoreSpring,
okay?
CoreSpring. Course, maybe it's like
Mm.
corespring.com. Charlene Dianconia is the originator and the owner of this, and it's an amazing, you would never think that something so simple could be so
Hmm.
profoundly effective, but I mean, and it's so easy for me to carry it around. So, and then by this time, most of my PD clients, they have their own. And so, we do our stuff with it.
Is it
Um,
like similar to like a regular Pilates spring?
so you would think, but it's not. So don't
Okay.
think that you can just pull a spring off of your
Hmm.
reformer or your caddy and put a handle on it. It's not going to be the same thing. It won't be necessarily the same thing because of the weight, because of the length, and just because of the tension of the spring.
Okay.
So this was the concept, yes, is there, but the development of this as a training tool is completely different. Yeah.
Got it. Perfect. Yeah, that was I know that would be a question that would be something that a lot of teachers would try to do, but that's why I wanted to ask that. So would you say, I know you mentioned that the homework is a very important aspect
Yeah.
for the clients, for the patients to just kind of keep working, doing it all the time. So this exercise that you showed in different variations, would it be an example of one of the homework exercises that you give them, or is it going to be too advanced for them to practice on their own?
I'm really happy you also asked that because that touches on another condition or situation that comes up with people with Parkinson's disease. So first, they have to do homework, yes or yes. So the most important thing is whatever you do in the studio, if they're coming to you in the studio, you have to be able to replicate, to extract one or two, not more than three components of what you're doing and send that as homework. So the way I do that is all my clients, they have their own Pilates for Parkinson's notebook for their homework. So each time I come, I write in the homework, whether they do it or not, whether they say, I don't need homework today because I still didn't do the other one, it doesn't matter to me. I write it down every single session. So what starts to happen is after time, the client now has a log or a book of exercises that are target specific to what their needs are. So, and it's just a reinforcement. So in the case of doing the Pakwa, I give a lot of times the head and neck movements for
Mm-hmm.
homework, right? And then the important thing about the head and neck movements is the ones that I tend to give the most are two. One is ear to shoulder, this one, because this is the movement, the frontal movement of the head and neck seems to go away first. You know, that's the one that disappears first. So I give that a lot. The head turning is a good one too. Marking things in the back, like giving them visual targets to look at, or sometimes I stand behind and I say, how many fingers am I holding up? And I, do a whole thing like that. But that's really important too. You have to help them preserve the mobility of the neck because that actually influences their stability and balance. Neck mobility means eye mobility, right? Or better
Mm-hmm.
visual perspective, perception. So you want to make sure that the neck stays very flexible. The other thing that's really important about the neck mobility is something that occurs very consistently with the PD condition as it progresses is issues with voice and swallowing. So the better, more mobile the muscles of the neck and the throat are, the better they can preserve those two aspects as well. So I would give, simple things. Whatever you do in the studio, you have to make sure they can replicate something like that at home. Yeah.
Okay. I actually have like a question since you're talking about preserving movement in the neck. So if there is that came from a live chat, if there is a cervical fusion,
Mhm.
what what would you do with a client like that? Because obviously there's a limitation to what they can
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, absolutely. So in a cervical fusion, and first off, it depends on which cervical vertebrae
Hmm.
are obviously. But if I turn sideways and I've got a cervical fusion, I can still do the neck movements because you still have to have some sort of neck mobility. You're not going to be stuck like this and then to look to the side, you have to do this. So yes, there may be some limitations on the depth of the movement, but I would still work them. And what I would do is I would reduce the range of motion and focus deeper. So for example, instead of down, it would be something like retract back and tip slightly and then release. And instead of all the way up, which by the way, we never do this because we don't want to compress the cervicals. It would be always thinking up to come back or up to come over. It's just always up and then whatever else. So up, and then with a cervical fusion, it could be something very mild like this. And then what I would do is I would take the jaw and extend it into an underbite like so.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could do repetitive underbite reps like this. So what that does is, as you can see, it's stretching the platysma, but it's also incorporating jaw movements and a lot of mobility through here. In terms of lateral flexion, it can be modified, small. And perhaps what would be really good too, instead of repetitive, here, maybe that's the max. And then I would do 3 breaths using my exhale to maybe relax a little bit more. And then relax a little bit more. So it's the exhale and the relaxation where you can take advantage of to get a teensy bit deeper. Yeah. So
Would you
let's
take out the circles?
I wouldn't. I honestly
Okay.
wouldn't take out anything. I mean, you could also,
Just small.
yeah, just because the thing about the head and neck, okay, I'm going to back up a little bit. In order to retain ambulation and gait, to preserve it, you need stability and balance, right? Because that's part of how we can ambulate and stay active and not fall down. So the three key areas that feed information to the brain to inform us about how do we stay stable and balanced for our movement are the eyes, the vestibular system, and the soles of the feet, which provide the somatosensory information, right? So if your eyes, because you've got a cervical fusion or your neck is fused and your eyes, your perspective is only as far as maybe your peripheral vision, and your vestibular system isn't moving around, it's pretty much staying in one place, right? That means that two of the sensory channels that give information to the brain are reduced significantly. So that will also significantly reduce your ability to stabilize and balance, right? So we need to stay active. So if you do have a cervical fusion, I'm not saying do everything, but try maybe something with smaller range of motion. And as I said before, less is more. So maybe if I had a client like that, I wouldn't do all of them at first. I would maybe just try a simple one, and then see how you feel. Just pick one and focus on that one. Yeah.
Okay. I'm also, well, let's get back to a question, then we have another one, but I think that's, yeah, it was like C2, C6 fusion, by the way.
Oh, the
Um,
complete vision. Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, you
yeah,
know, you
just
gotta
still keep doing, yeah, whatever you can, just
what you
small.
can, but
Yeah.
it goes back to the old adage, use it or lose it, right? And in the
Mhm.
case of a person with Parkinson's disease, you need to stay as active as possible, which is why the baseline is the most important thing. What you do every single day is going to have much stronger benefits than what you do once a week, right?
Mhm.
And by the way, I'm not a doctor, so don't go against whatever, consult your doctor first. Obviously, I'm just saying if I were working with a client, I would have to see what their movement is first, and then I wouldn't stop them from doing any particular movements unless it was specifically contraindicated by their doctor. But I would just move very slowly and just try to help them preserve whatever they have.
Got it. So let me just ask you because that question actually came in a while back and I want to make sure to cover it. Um, like how can, well, it can be like a two-part question, I guess, because I received it also in a different from one of the requests there. How can this work for Parkinson's? Can it be also integrated when working with the clients who have other neurological conditions? That's one. And the question that came in specifically in the chat would be if it's a patient that has Parkinson's and Alzheimer's.
Mhm, mhm.
Like, can you provide? I know, like, it's a big topic over there
No,
already,
it's
but
it's
yeah,
pretty simple. The
okay.
simple answer is yes. So the thing that I hear the most from teachers who are taking, for example, my instructor certificate course and workshops and such, is they are blown away that they can just apply all of this to all their clients, Parkinson's or no Parkinson's, whatever the condition is. It's so easily applicable to everyone. Everyone can benefit. And so, it's almost kind of like getting a bonus from, the information and knowledge you're learning on how to work with this particular population. And then you try it with other people and you're like, wow, and they like it and they're benefiting. So the short answer is yes, anybody can do it. In terms of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, so I don't know if it's Parkinson's plus Alzheimer's, or maybe they have Parkinson's plus dementia, which looks a lot like Alzheimer's, or they have Alzheimer's. So I do work with Alzheimer's clients as well. I specialize in the Parkinson's condition, but a lot of the movements that I do with my Alzheimer clients are the same, very much so the same. The difference would be more in how I'm cueing, how I'm reinforcing when I'm working with an Alzheimer's client. There's different things to take into consideration cognitively and also emotionally. And, those would be more the differences, but the movements would be very much the same and with the
Okay.
same fabulous benefits and progress.
Awesome. So what? should be some of the contraindications or things maybe that the teachers have to be aware of, something that they should just like say, well, if that's a client who comes in even at the early stages, I should just, maybe not go down that road of choosing those exercises.
Mhm.
And I would imagine this is nothing that from specifically your program, but I guess like the regular
In general.
Pilates routine, yeah, like what they're teaching in the studio, what they're used to, what are some of the contraindications in that scenario?
So first, again, the way I approach things, my method approaches it, is we are very keen on understanding and identifying right quickly the stage and the motor symptoms. So those themselves carry their own kind of set of contraindications, I guess you could say. However, in general, I would say the two biggest contraindications are number one, you really don't want to do any flexion with the client because aside from stretching open, right? And
Hmm.
I'm not even talking about going into extension. I'm just talking about stretching. I tend to, aside from the beginning opening stretch series that I do with the client, I don't do any flexion because forward flexion is already innate in the progression of the condition. We're trying to keep them out of flexion, right? So
Hmm.
they're coming down no matter what. So we need more extension, lots of lateral flexion, better rotation. So I would say contraindicated would be something like staying a little more away from flexion. Number two, it also depends on their age because a lot of people, when they're diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, they're later in age, barring the young onset, which is like 50, under 50. But most people, when by the time they're diagnosed, they're already up in age, like 70s on. I'd say 50%, 60% of my clients are in their 80s. And so, this is where your Pilates knowledge really comes into play. Use the same practices and contraindications that you would, give the same care that you would, your concern for things that are, natural progressions of aging. Things also to be aware of are osteoporosis or osteopenia conditions. So you just want to keep your clients safe and using your background in Pilates and your training, that I think is significant.
Hmm. So do you recommend using, and this is like a little different question, using the Pilates equipment, like of all the Pilates equipment that's available at the studio, what's your favorite to use with the clients who come to the studio actually?
So you want to think in terms of safety, stability, and security, right? So when we're thinking like that, I would say I love all the apparatuses and they all offer different things. But if I had a PD client in studio, I would either be on Cadillac or on Reformer. And for very obvious reasons, you can much more easily provide a closed chain environment on a caddy or a reformer than you could on a
Mhm.
barrel or a chair, right?
Yeah.
Spine corrector, I wouldn't necessarily use that as much either. There are other things that you can use. Again, less is more. Um, Closed chain, definitely as they're from to like stage two or mid stage on to however long they're seeing you in the studio. Open chain, I would do more minimally in early stages because in early stage, you have an opportunity, a window of opportunity that you don't want to waste. So you need to push them very hard. And that's the time that I would be focusing more on strengthening them. I would do an assessment on what they're able to do now and then fortify that hard using maybe leg strengthening exercises with the reformer. The entire footwork sequence is fabulous, obviously. The metatarsals on the foot bar, so you can get the Achilles and the calf stretching because all of those things are going to tighten. All of those things will be difficult to manage as the condition progresses. So, and then can I add one thing? Because I saw a question where somebody said that the only exercise one of their clients had on the foot bar that was difficult was the heel lift and lower with their metatarsal.
Yeah, yeah.
So in a case like that, it depends on the stage. So I do have someone who's probably at about a two-ish, and I do have him on the reformer, and we do have to do that. So if he is doing it there, I will support his feet so they don't slip off, because there's also a concern for security. Your proprioception and your sensations like they vary when you have PD. And so there's always this kind of like a little bit of anxiety and fear that it feels like my foot's gonna slip off, even though it's not. But for security and for safety, I might hold the feet there. But then if you think about it, what is the point of that heel lift and lower on the foot bar? It's to stretch and to create more mobility through the ankle joint, right?
Hmm.
The Achilles area, the calf. So you could also easily do that if you have a client stand on a step with security and drop the heel and push it up and drop the heel. So I do the same thing from the reformer, but I can do it standing with a step,
Hmm.
steps or a stairs or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So that means that the client feels more secure in doing it like that because they're not afraid that their foot is going to slip off, right? Because they're vertical, number one.
Hmm.
They're stable with both feet on a surface and just the heel lifting and lowering on from the step versus, laying down. So that could
Okay.
be.
And would you do it like I'm just thinking like with a strap, like if they're like not comfortable just laying down with a strap, like the toes on the strap where they can hold on to it and just doing that movement of the ankle?
Well, generally I hold to also
Hmm.
get the feedback.
Yeah.
I feel what's happening. I usually am very hands-on with my clients. Strap wise, do you mean when their feet
Just
are
like a
on?
like a yoga, no, like a yoga strap, just put the feet out and just almost like you're doing a hamstring stretch laying down, but
Mhm.
add the movement of the ankle to it
Oh,
where you can,
oh, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that's very for older clients, especially men, to stretch their leg out like that is
Well,
very
maybe like diagonal, yeah.
tough one.
One at a time at that point, yeah, definitely not two.
But the thing is that the more secure you make them feel, and that's why I also like the Cadillac because there's so many
Hmm.
things to hold on to and such. The more secure you make the client feel, the more output you'll get from them, the more challenge you can give to them. It's when they feel a little bit nervous, and this pretty much goes for everybody, that they're going to hold back a little bit. And in early stages, it's the big push. You have to get them moving at a very intense degree so that later, as things start to progress, they're stronger. They're more able to, to do daily tasks and to preserve movement.
So I'm going to ask you, I know we're coming up to the end of an hour here, and I want to get through a couple more questions that came in before we wrap up. And like maybe we can just give short answers just so that we
Sure.
can cover as many as we can. So first, and there were several came in about the Parkinson's clients in a group setting. How would you address that? Obviously, I would imagine that would be like an early stage because
Yeah.
we need a lot of hands-on for anybody afterwards. But would you keep them in a group setting, or would you just right away recommend, it's time to move to a private?
If it's starting to overtake the group where you're getting nervous and you're finding that you're standing close to them, cueing them all the time, and then the other people in the group are, not quite getting the full thing, I would have a conversation with the client. It's a hard conversation because
Mm-hmm.
you want them to stay with the group because it's also a socialization aspect. But on the backside, you need them to be able to do some of the group cueing. So maybe you could have a conversation that goes like, look, Sally, we love having you in the group. I'm noticing that when you do X, Y, and Z exercises, it's looking a little strained or not as clean or wonky or whatever. Why don't you, if you would like to stay in the group, at least do a private on the side so we could take a look at some of these movements and see where we can fortify them so you feel safer doing them in the group. So as long as it's not disrupting the group too much, maybe you could pull them aside. But if it's getting to be to the point where there's a fall risk, there's a lot of things you can get hurt on
Mm-hmm.
in studios. So, the
Yeah.
last thing you want to do is that.
Okay.
Right.
Next one we've seen we covered several of them over here. Um, okay, so this is a specific one from Anne. When is it okay or not okay to ask for more specific movement? For example, when we use the foot corrector, my Parkinson's client really wants to move his hips regardless of verbal and tactile cues. Is it appropriate to get like that dialed in and really focus on that, or is it just better to leave him be?
Right. So I would first ask, and this is the line of thinking, why are you using the foot corrector? Are there other things that you could use or do for this client to isolate the movement so they don't have to recruit other muscles? Because that's what he's doing. Whatever you're trying to get him to do, he's not able to do it. He's not strong enough, or it's coming off where he has to recruit other areas to help him do that. So I would kind of rethink what your primary goal is, and then think about other ways that you could achieve that outside of a foot corrector. That's what I
Okay.
was.
Okay, so just more controlled, stable environment basically, and yeah, work
Again,
from there. Yeah. How do you feel about the boxing classes that are offered for Parkinson's? Do you feel like it's a good fit for them?
so in terms of boxing, LSVT, big, all the different like exercise programs, I support all of it. I just want the clients to move. I will say, however, the benefit that comes the most is from what they do daily. So, simple example, do you think your oral hygiene would be the same if you just went to the dentist once a week? Or if you went twice a week, or brushed your teeth once a week or twice a week or every single day? So
Mhm.
obviously every single day is going to pay you back so much more than a one time a week. And again, Pilates for Parkinson's is a baseline program. So this is what we want you doing every single day, just a little bit, 2 15-minute segments a day, and then do boxing on Mondays or LSVT on Wednesdays or whatever else. Add that on.
Yeah, just keep on moving, keep on doing.
Right,
Uh,
but keep the baseline going.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Let's see, everything else we have a lot of this covered here. Um, so there's a question, that's probably going to be the last one, because I think you're going to have a great answer for this one. I've been working with a lovely woman with Parkinson's. She has become worse over the winter where she spent her time in Florida. She wants to come back, and I don't feel qualified to help her at this point. Can I continue helping her, or would she benefit from another form of movement? So I know you have an answer of how Judy can help her. So I would like you to talk a little bit about it.
Well, first, I just want to say you are definitely qualified. You just have to learn a little bit more. If you're a Pilates teacher, you're definitely qualified. You're missing some knowledge there, some information. But I will tell you the giant aha moment I had, like, oh my God, I've got to educate. This is so one of my I'm from the school of Lolita San Miguel, so I'm one of her disciples, Lolita's disciples, and her legacy people. And we were having a conversation about Parkinson's, and she said to me, I've had family members and friends who've had Parkinson's, and it was so horrible. She goes, I wanted so much to help, but I just didn't know what to do. And that was like, holy Lord, if an elder, I mean, of course you can, there's many things you can do, but the missing component is target specific. What can you do to help, right? We don't want to throw a bunch of different exercises. Yes, you may hit the target. Yes, it could be helpful, But the more knowledge and information you have, the more effective you can be. Because when a person has Parkinson's disease, by the time they're diagnosed, they've already lost 60 to 80% of the dopamine in their midbrain, right? So this means they're already starting behind the eight ball and they do not have time to lose. So we have to help them in a way that's more specific to what their needs are, their condition, their physical ability, their predominant motor symptom, and that's how we can intervene. So the short answer is absolutely you can help. Please get in touch with me after. I'm happy to give you even more, some free resources if you want, of my own, so that you can help her. She's coming to you because she trusts you. That's an important starting point.
Yeah, that's definitely gaining trust if a person is the hardest one, especially when they're already, scared in a way and, not sure about a lot of things that are changing in their bodies and in their lives.
Mhm.
Um, Cecilia, I want to thank you so much for this interview. And before we finish it all, I really want you to share how people can connect with you and learn from you. So I know you offer teacher training courses and workshops. And could you please let us know where we can find the information about it? If you have anything going on, like soon, any way that we can connect with you and learn more.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm going to give you like some of the upcoming education dates and information. But if you just want to reach out to me, I will do anything to help as much as I can people with Parkinson's disease because I love my movement. We take for granted how fortunate we are, and to watch and be conscious of the fact that you're losing your movement and your abilities. It's like a Chinese torture of dripping water on your forehead, one drop at a time, where you're aware of what's happening. So please reach out to me. You can find me on email at Pilates for Parkinson's at yahoo.com. You can visit my website, which is very general, but you can contact me through there, which is Pilates for Parkinson's.com. There is an education and training website that's coming later in the summer. And in terms of continuing education right now, all my continuing education carries NPCP education credits with it. We have a workshop, which is 5 hours coming up on June 7th. It's from 11 to 4. And it is the foundation, the 11 absolute and understanding Parkinson's. That is like your back pocket hip tool that you can pull out for anybody who walks in and know you're going to help them safely. And then I have a course. It's an ongoing 8-week course. The next one starts on July 23rd, and it goes one time a week. And then there's a final project. It meets live, but it is live online, but it's recorded. So if you miss a session, don't worry about it. You're going to get the recording. And then I am available always to help any teacher in those courses. And the last thing is we have a live course that's happening in Mexico, June 20th through the 22nd, as well as a workshop on applying the 11 Absolute to apparatus in studio. So these are for teachers who've already gone through the teacher training course and they understand the movements, and now they will see how to extract even more benefit by using the apparatus in studio and different props. And that's in June. And I will say also there, if you do want to go to Mexico, it's Puerto Vallarta. We give you a special discount to help offset travel and accommodation. We want as many people there as possible to learn and to help this population. And that is actually my sister's studio, and that is Pilates for Parkinson's Espanol. So that course is bilingual. It's taught by two.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really
So
quite.
if somebody wants to sign up for any of those courses, would they find it on your pilatesforparkinsons.com website right now? The links to get more details and yeah, reach out, sign up.
It should be there. You can also get information through the NPCP website on those three
Okay.
events. And if you are still lost or you can't find it, please just email me. I will make sure that you get whatever you need and support you as best I can. Yeah, there's so much we can do. There is so much we can do. And I feel like Pilates teachers are such an underutilized resource for the Parkinson's community, So
Yeah.
let's do it. Let's do some.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Cecilia. It was really an
Sure.
amazing interview. I think I learned a ton, and I know everybody who watched it and will watch it, the replay will learn a ton from you. And hopefully, if you guys want to see Cecilia again and have another interview because it's a big project, a big topic to cover, leave a comment on this video. Let us know, and we'll see if we can schedule something else in the upcoming months and talk more about working with clients with Parkinson's.
Yeah. Thank you so
Thank
much, Anastasia.